Well, I don't know where this got to, and I'll just have to stop here in a minute because it's just some of this stuff's getting out of hand. Um, I'm really concerned about. I always have been about me, but I'm really a bit concerned with the way things are going. Not here where I'm at right at the moment, but some other things. Well, part of this concerns me too. Uh, the parents are very influential. That they Channel 10 doesn't mind getting them on and interviewing them. They do. They could have spoken out just like me because they have to know I'm telling the truth. Um, but Channel 10 and the others have kept. They get time on TV when nobody else does. And that's all I'm going to say because I'm probably already in trouble. Okay, the very fact that I didn't, you got to know this was orchestrated if you get into all this. The Fairfax where Jesse Matthews, who was supposed to murdered, well, he was programmed. The two girls were murdered. One was from England, a student at Charlottesville. This is second tape. I'm just filling in a lot of the last part of it didn't go up. I run out and I have to look around to see what time's left, and I'm talking to a dead phone there at the end. Anyway, it concerns me that about the family, very prominent here, and they get on their own television and everything. I don't know why they haven't come forward and told, because there's a lot involved in this. So anyway, now this happens up in, it's messaging. They got Messenger on Facebook. What this is different. It's knocking people off, and uh, maybe one day I'll get a chance. I'll be dead probably. I'm old, and if I managed to live, I mean, I wonder what I did it for now, because I cared for people was a big part of it. And then I find out people don't want to get involved, and some few brave souls do. But anyway, my nose is itching. This is just right here. Okay, and I hate to do that on. It's all so ludicrous. It is. Okay, just like the FBI agent told me up in Grottoes, Virginia, when I had a Larry Flint car. It was furnished for me after I ran in a political campaign to replace Congressman Dr. Larry McDonald when he went down in the KAL plane with 296 aboard, and Richard Nixon was taken off just prior to takeoff. I'm told that Larry McDonald wasn't on the plane either. They took him off. And Geraldo Rivera, who is, well, I don't hear much of him. I think he's on Fox now, but reporter. Anyway, I was in that campaign. Now let me get back to where I'm going. I mentioned that as a safety valve. If, Larry Flint was shot in Lawrenceville, I'm writing about program shooters and mind control that can cure illnesses or create the Tesla files that were stolen in 1930. So I didn't know it was back to that. And now then President Trump, I find out his uncle was a MIT professor. And this is, I had no knowledge of what I was writing that was connected and going to end up in all this. His uncle was MIT professor, and they would say that he ended up with the Tesla files. Well, from other information I have, I even have put this up where it's in a book. It says the FBI had them, the Illuminati had them. The Illuminati's the one that got them. Because it's not just what I was writing there about mind control and all that. This gets into some other stuff if you can access, well, I think you can. Someone sent it to me, and it made a lot of sense to me. It's called The Last President, and it's got Trump. Now, some of this was predicted, and there's books written on it back then by Ingersoll Wood. Ingersoll, had Ingersoll Wood? No, it's a little bit more to his name. Anyway, you can find it. You really need to listen to that one, no kidding. Anyway, what am I doing? All this, and I'm telling my real name, which is true. Did the book, ran the campaign, and here I am sitting here. I came to Roanoke in 86, October. I had a rough time all my life, but it's been no joy train at all. Any of my life in here either. The point is that this ordeal, if you haven't tuned this out now, I promise you if it ever is made and put before the public, they have to listen to it in order. They're not going to dismiss it anymore. But right now, okay, they just had this deal. I'm going to be redundant in case, but I want to tell it in case some of the tape that I'm going to put up, I just made, didn't catch it. It's not on there. The murders that happened, Jesse Matthews worked at one time at the hospital, General Hospital in Charlottesville, next door here. Well, a few miles, I guess, maybe 60, I'm not sure if it's that far. But he was the African-American that killed the two girls here. One went to school at Charlottesville, and she's from the UK, from England. And she was finishing school, and her parents came over here too. So she was murdered in a horrible way. All of it is, But this was one that fits in patterns, and I got to tell you, it can be proven. I don't think anybody, if it gets it into court, is the first line you have to go through. Enough people would admit, that can't be made up. Okay, he pled guilty a few years ago, and the other one, young girl, and this is why I was telling this, it's not just a young girl, it's not just a young boy. This involves mass, like the Columbine, the Florida, the Parkland, what's the Aurora, Colorado, James Holmes, and all the people that were shot in the Grand Theater. He's being treated rather than mind control. And this is another one. If you ever get into it, you can absolutely prove it. Because mind control is done at a low level that you're aware you're hearing it. And they teach you the Morse code. I'm sure there's a lot of different ways now, but that's back when I started doing the book and working for the doctors for a year, who knew I was doing the book. They knew I was using it to Xerox, So they were on my side. Anyway, let me get back to this. It's part of it is messaging. It's a way to send a message by committing these acts that are done in patterns too. Now then, the Jesse Matthews pled guilty, and he's in prison for life. And both girls were taken out, and you think I don't know that it hurts? My children, I don't know where they are. They were so abused that people do not want it told, and what was done to me because of who we are and who kidnapped us. So many reputations would be, it's sick, really, ruined, But anyway, I'm just going to stop here because I'm a little hesitant. I've put all this up so long and I've made it this far, and it's a little bit scary for me, and there's a reason. So anyway, the family of the one girl from here was on TV. They'll carry them and talk about the murder. They will not talk to me. And I was told by one young man, I was at a food pantry, quite frankly, some years ago, back in about 2010, I think it happened. And he was just dressed in jeans, I believe, and he was behind me. And I was waiting on Radar to come pick me up, and I got some food there at the pantry. And he told me that his wife worked for Channel 7 here and in Roanoke, and that they weren't going to touch anything about me. That his wife they're all handed what to go out and cover, and I guess what to say. I don't remember if he said that, but I mean that anyway, that they weren't going to touch and tell anything about me. So anyway, the reason, well, I'm concerned is the family here. I'm confused because to me, they have a lot of clout. They've been on TV and covered, and this wasn't to save just another girl or young man. This was to save Scott Peterson. Wasn't a real young man. You've got older people. This involves, it isn't an age or a gender thing. It's a name games, certain things that tie it together, like you would crypt or anything else. I'm saying this and people know what I'm talking about. Now then, I want to say this one without getting into detail. I lived out in Troutville when this happened a few years ago. I lived at I think it's Motel 6 now. It's a small one. The woman next door to me, when I moved in, I'm made to run from place to place. Okay, her last name, she'd married a Ramsey. You get into the Ramsey, the Linwood, and the Olympic Park jewel that they thought bombed Piedmont Park in Atlanta back then. Then they proved that wrong, and then Linwood said that Richard Jewell didn't do it. So now then, Linwood, who I have met. I mean, I didn't meet him. Excuse me, I saw him. He come close out there, but I'm going to leave it at that, because all this, people would say, oh, this isn't happening. This is because you can't get it into law. You can't get it into the media to cover it or anything. And anyway, I went to Atlanta and into Linwood's office. I didn't actually see him. I was told he wasn't there at the time. I did see him later, so he did make an attempt to see me. Anyway, then they charged Eric Rudolph with the bombings and blowing up a abortion clinic in Alabama. So they were looking for him all over the place, and they knew, I can guarantee the FBI knew exactly where he was. Anyway, he was in South Carolina, and he had lived there, and he ended up here in Roanoke, and there's several people saw him, and I'm not sure I didn't. I was living on the Appalachian Trail up here at Full Heart Knob. I'm not sure I didn't talk to him. He didn't show up there. But it's not funny because he's in prison now. This is mind control. But the Linwood represented the Ramseys, so they have to know all this. I even went back trying to find my children to Marietta where I lived and went down. They knew. They started talking to me, and they started talking about the Ramseys and about. Well, there's a lot said of, well, I better not say that. Somebody else will get offended. Roswell. I think her body was flown back from out there in Colorado, Boulder, to Roswell here. And then I guess they lived in Marietta there because she was buried there. I think her mom was buried there, too, in Marietta Cemetery. Now, they have to know about this. The Ramseys do. But anyway, in Linwood, as far as I know, he's a good guy. But why can they not get this into court? So now, where was I? I've lost my train of thought. Okay, forgive me here. There was something else I was going to tell. Anyway, that night, I got a phone call, and bless his heart, he and his wife, Linda, can I say this without getting them hurt? In Galax, he had retired as a Virginia state trooper out of Arlington. They live in Galax. God knows I don't want them in trouble. Back in 2009, in August, the 14th of 2009, that night before, I had gone up there to the park since, by the way, it's a, what am I trying to say? Well, I can't. The Park Service owns it. That the White House sits on. What am I trying to say here? Anyway, um, I had gone up there. They've closed it not long after then. Was a nice campground. I woke up and there'd been fuel poured in the night all over my tent. And that's not the only time. So how I've escaped so far, I don't know. I haven't really at times. But anyway, they brought me down. He was supposed to be the host, he and his wife. And his name's Carl Barton. They gave me the letterhead that you put on a letter, and they had the address and everything on it. So I guess he wanted me to use it here in Linda. And I'll cut out all the rest of it. They brought me down there, and I stayed there for 17 months through hell, but it wasn't their fault. That wasn't. I will say this. He said to me, this is how or his wife did, how we run you with chemicals. And I've told all this on here, so don't just take this one video and say, hey, what do you mean? This is weird. Yeah, it's weird, and it's all true. This has been allowed to happen. But I have an autoimmune disorder, and if I'm in close quarters where there's toxic fumes, then my immune system attacks itself, and it causes mass inflammation over time, and it affects your, like, vertigo. It can. Somebody's saying dehydration. Well, I happen to know when I smell something and I get vertigo, but that's not the only thing. It affects your kidneys, your lungs, your heart. I have a heart arrhythmia now from it, and over the years it can just kill you. What the heck? And then the medicine for inflammation, mine's suddenly been cut down when it should have been put back up. So I don't know what the deal is there. Your knees and your spine and everything gets where you can't walk. You have to take the stuff for inflammation. Anyway, I'm not going to get on that again. I'll make somebody else mad at me. So anyway, the night that Jesse Matthews, of these two murders up in Fairfax, remember Fairfax, the name Fairfax. That's the lieutenant governor. That's the governor up there, was charged with a racial thing. They demand he resign. Okay, Fairfax is going to take his job, and then he's accused of 2 rapes, and then Mark Herron is the state's attorney, and I don't have anything against any of these people. I mean, I really don't. They're going to make them resign, and look at what's happened to me and mine, and that's the whole thing. Your people way back hobnob Winston Churchill taking down my dad and then my kidnapping. You get into one mess. No wonder they don't want it told. I've had no civil rights. You got presidents. You can look some of this up. Winston Churchill, sorry, sot, helped take down my father. And he hobnobbed with Eisenhower, who became president. And he even went with Roosevelt. I don't know about Eisenhower. If he did, I assume he did. But he had an apartment or rooms there in the White House, and they furnished him a limousine, the little turncoat. And then he knew who was the following: Truman. And then you had JFK and Nixon, and the Watergate scandal that they had to get rid of the 18.5-minute gaps on it because of what was on it and where they were calling from. So now then back to the